Hello everyone, Shinbishi here. Today, I have another video with a robot voice. I know how much y'all love it. This time, I decided I want to answer some controversial questions because my opinionated ass felt like it was a good idea. I don't know if anyone has already done a video like this, but I guess it's a hybrid of those about reacting to controversial opinions, confessions and all that. The inevitable disclaimer: don't take any of what I say as a personal attack. I always try to express myself in a respectful way that opens a civilized dialogue. Feel free to share your own answers, but I won't tolerate people coming here to leave hate comments disguised as opinions. Let's begin before I regret even coming up with this. Is the K-pop beauty standard actually a necessity for the culture, or should it be stopped? Nothing that brings more harm than benefit should be considered a necessity. It's probably one of the most insane aspects of idol culture. The fact that plastic surgery is so glorified, even at an extremely young age, is wrong. I'm not against getting surgery, but I really think that many idols might be influenced to get work done. Then they have crazy and unhealthy diets because God forbid an idol dares to be slightly heavier, and K-nets will only rip them to shreds. The hypocrisy of criticizing bigger idols until they're too thin, because people just love to comment on others' bodies even if all that does is ruin idols' self-esteem and mental health. Calling idols ugly if their facial features or skin tone isn't the standard, all that's disgusting and I wish it could stop. Working as an idol is already stressful enough for people to think they're entitled of their physical appearance. Is K-pop toxic? K-pop as a music genre? No. Korean music industry? Yes, the music industry in general is toxic. From the way idols are treated by companies and K-nets, to considering a relationship a scandal, to minimizing serious topics like sexism, racism and colorism, etc. There's also K-pop stans guilty of the same thing. Do you accept the fact that K-pop is the one that's copying Western music and not the other way around? Is K-pop losing its charm and is instead becoming more westernized? I'm guilty of accusing some songs of sounding too Western. I still stand by it, but I don't think it's too serious. K-pop, while being its very particular genre and style, has taken inspiration from Western music and trends since forever and adapted some things here and there. I think the most original aspects that K-pop has brought is the way the industry works. The very well-defined and established concepts, fashion and style trends, etc. The West is recently also feeding from all of this too. So, I'd say both sides are taking inspiration from each other and following trends that make artists popular. Are K-pop groups getting more and more alike or not? Do you think K-pop is getting generic? I believe there's a current strategy going on inside a good amount of companies. The mentality seems to be, this thing worked and is popular, let's try to do it too and get popular. At the end of the day, their priority is business and what sells the best. That's why there's a trend at the moment of concepts and music style. A lot of girl crush and badass girls, a lot of dark concepts and tough boys. Same thing happened a few years ago with the tropical house trend. Now there's also a lot of disco and Latin influenced music. So, I wouldn't say generic because I still find a lot of variety, but they follow trends because that's a good strategy. Is current K-pop really just focusing on dancing and not the music in preparation for award shows? Are fourth generation groups' songs only focused on raps and dance? I wouldn't say rap that much, but definitely yes for the choreography, dance and performance aspects. Personally, I don't think that's wrong. The main thing that captivated me and captured my attention when I got into K-pop was how much is put into creating a performance. I've always been a huge fan of dancing and I just loved that it was such an important thing in K-pop. This also totally helps a group or song in particular become viral, with fun and interesting steps everyone wants to imitate on social media. That lures in new fans since we don't see this that often with Western artists, which now we do since it's a trend to do so. I also wouldn't say that's just fourth gen groups, it's what's trendy at the moment. Can we really call someone from the fourth generation best vocalist? The best vocalist of all time? No, not yet. There are some main vocalists with a lot of potential that for different reasons haven't had a great chance to prove themselves. Like Chu and Hassel, Luna is not as popular as we orbits would love them to be, plus Hassel still needs time off. Or Jungho from 80s. I always read that he's one of the best from 4Gen. And I got to hear it when I did my video on them, but I still think they're more known for their strong performances. There also may be great vocalists in underrated groups. More rap-focused groups or that are still very young and need more training and time to fully develop their talent. For now, we have to wait for a vocal-heavy wave to arrive so we can see what they have. Are koreaboos something wrong in your opinion? Yes. Your race is something you can't change and you should be proud of where you come from. To try and pretend you're from another race and country by making physical changes and acting differently and following the stereotypes is wrong and low-key offensive. It's okay if you listen to K-pop, want to learn Korean, dream about traveling to South Korea, like their food, or even if you enjoy their fashion, makeup style. It's not okay to change your facial features, to throw the most random Korean words at the most random times just because to try to act cute and do I-go because that's all you think Koreans are. Wanting to have a Korean name or fetishizing them and saying all you want in life is a Korean BFGF to the extent of harassing Asian people on the street. It's wrong and creepy to do this with any race, culture, and I bet most people will regret that behavior later in life. Are solo stans toxic? TBH, I find it a bit weird to stan only one member from a group, especially when they haven't even debuted or released any solo stuff, but you do you, I guess. What's not cool is when it becomes harmful and people start hating and being disrespectful towards the other members, claiming their fave should leave because they're too good for the group or go to fan meets and are rude to them, etc. That behavior ain't normal. Can you stan a group without knowing all the members? I would consider that more of a casual fan or stan in the making. For me, to stan knows at least all the members' names, or is trying to, because then there's NCT. So I'm not the type of person who believes you should know all of their life story to be a valid stan though. When is being a stan going too far? When you start to dedicate every single second of every single day to who you stan and at the same time you prioritize being a fan over your life obligations. If you stop going to school, doing homework, studying, working, if you're missing other important things in your life because you can only think about being a stan 24/7, or if you stop taking care of yourself and your loved ones. If you can't understand that others in your fandom may have other responsibilities and can't spend all day streaming or have no money to spend on their faves, if you're getting in trouble because of it, you may have gone too far. Having idols is an amazing part of life, but you should have them as inspiration and not a distraction. What are your thoughts on standing underage idols? Should there be an age limit on how young an idol can be? Yes, please. I don't like seeing a lot of kid groups recently. They're just so young and should be focusing their childhood on other things that aren't work. I even feel uncomfortable when they're barely 14 years old. I get that they try to include super young members in the lineups to attract a younger audience and because they want idols to be super young for the longest time possible. But I find 14 and 15 years old to be too young. 16 and 17 ain't that different if we talk about how exposed minors are to sexualization, but at least they may be a bit more mature to start a career. I'm a 98 liner. This means that now most of the new groups are starting to be younger than me. I stan and listen to groups with a good amount of minors, for example Luna. From my adult perspective, I don't find it wrong for people around my age to be fans of these groups or having underage biases as long as it's in a pure and respectful way. Regardless, it's very complicated because not everyone will respect limits and boundaries, and that can easily get creepy. If you're also underage, it's pretty normal to stan them. Just don't overly sexualize them either, since it's something that'd most likely make them uncomfortable as it would make you. Is it okay to love a group but hate the fandom? Hate is such a strong word. I mean, if you're actively engaging on arguments or replying to annoying fans just because you despise them, not saying that you do this OP, that's a bit too much. I've seen some people acting this way and I find that dumb. It's okay to love a group but not want to take part on the fandom and interact with others. If you simply want to be there for the group and their music, just don't let your hate for a fandom be bigger than your love for an artist. Any groups you can't stand? Are there any K-pop idols you dislike? Are there idols that you dislike without knowing why or for a small reason? Groups as a whole, nope. Okay, so, hear me out. There are way too many groups and idols and it's impossible to like everyone. I really dislike Sungri, Jimin, by Shindong, sorry not sorry. Does Young Yun Suk count? Young Jun Young, Choi Jong Hoon, Park Yu Chun and all those nasty as men. Why Young, I mean. What's your view on cultural appropriation in K-pop and how the blame is distributed between the idols, their stylists and their companies? Does this excuse the problem in K-pop when it comes to cultural appropriation for their conservative and lack of education about the issue? First of all, let me say that I'm no expert on the topic, especially in cultures that aren't mine and that I'm not super familiar with. So, if I end up saying something that's wrong, I not only apologize in advance but would be thankful to be corrected. Cultural appropriation is real and it's an issue. You can't take something that has cultural, religious, or historic value and do whatever you want with it because you think it's cool and trendy, when in reality it's just disrespectful, especially if it's a culture that you have no relation to. These things were created with a purpose, meaning, and have a story behind them that's valuable for the people. Minorities from all around the world have been disrespected for centuries and have been the object of discrimination for literally just existing and standing in their own skin and culture, because in this modern world some think it's wrong when you appear too ethnic. There's a reason why people happen to be so protective of their symbols, clothing, hair, art, expressions, etc. Now, each of us are more familiar with specific cultures and different levels depending on where we're from, our surroundings and upbringing. Do I think we all should do an extensive research of every single thing that could fall under cultural appropriation all around the world, write it down and memorize it? No. I don't think that could even be possible because sometimes even people from the same culture disagree on the topic. Also, sometimes we should understand that people don't do it with ill intent and there's a possibility they took inspiration from something completely different, since the same thing can have different meanings and uses in different cultures that may not be offensive. Do I think that you must pay attention to those from a specific culture when they say something is cultural appropriation? Do your own research beforehand if you already have a sense on a situation. Not do it once you're educated on it and apologize if you did it. Yes, if you keep doing it over and over again, even after being educated and called out several times, but you prefer to remain remorseless and ignorant because you simply don't care, that says a lot about you. Which sadly happens way too often in K-pop. Who shall we blame for it? I do believe idols share some weight on it, but I also believe that not everyone has a say on hair, outfits, accessories and concept. There's a deeper root to change, and that can only come from having managers and stylists that aren't ignorant and comprehend the cultural appropriation issue. We have the internet and people from all around the world to share their thoughts on this topic and specific situations. There has been several people who have done cultural appropriation and have been called out, so that you can take that as an example of not doing something. People should start focusing more on insensitive actions rather than calling those offended too sensitive. Should idols' past affect their careers? Thoughts on cancel culture. Like, when is it justified? I find canceling people a bit pointless because it doesn't really work when and how it should. Here's the thing, we're never going to be able to erase another human being's existence even if they deserve it, since not all of their followers will leave and some will defend them no matter how wrong it is. When they've committed a serious crime or have said offensive things that go against basic human rights and don't seem to have any remorse about it, I believe it's justified for them to lose followers and their platform. At the end of the day, it's up to us as individuals to stop supporting problematic people that go against our morals and that believe you must tolerate their hate speech because it's an opinion. Sooner or later, karma will reach them. If you committed a crime or did offensive stuff online or to someone, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't get the opportunity to have such an important platform that being an idol gives to you. Yes, people can change, but please do it behind the scenes where you can't influence an impressionable audience. Do you think that streaming in the current way, just an automatic way to increment the views without really listening to the song, is actually good for the music industry, or that the numbers are bigger and bigger but empty? I think that's just the way fandom streaming has always worked. I remember back in the day when it was 1D versus JB, with fans always fighting about who had more views, sales, streams. The thing is that now these numbers are just insanely huge. It's crazy how big an insane streaming culture has become. It's something that those in charge of charts and all that definitely didn't expect, and we're now seeing how they're trying to deal with it and make it more organic. For example, Billboard with new charting rules, or YouTube with new algorithm for views in the first 24 hours. I personally don't think numbers are all that. They help for exposure and money for sure, but shouldn't be considered as everything an artist has. Why do people have to stan all GGS or support all female K-pop groups in their Twitter bios, but when they see GFRIEND they instantly jump on the hate bandwagon? I really believe it has a lot to do with internalized misogyny. Some people still think it's cool to only support girl groups when they do badass and girl crush concepts, but those who rely more on being girly and innocent shall be considered weak and therefore hate them for it. Ridiculous. Women should stand together and support each other, as we understand that being powerful is not just represented by a tough aesthetic and lyrics that aren't about love. There's power and beauty and sensibility in expressing our feelings. People also really like to drag them for the most nonsense reasons. Of course they're not perfect, and I'm not saying everyone has to love them, but most hate them just because. Anyway, GFRIEND remains as a very influential group that has proven you can have your name out there by doing your own thing. Is line distribution really important, or should the quality of the song be prioritized as said by producers? Why can't we have both? Ideally, keeping a balance between fulfilling positions and keeping a fair distribution should be a priority. This could also be based on music style and difficulty to execute. It's impossible to have a distribution where everyone sings exactly the same amount of time, but it's ridiculous to give just one or two members the responsibility of carrying almost an entire song on their own with others singing one word. To me, having an extremely unfair distribution just dismisses the point of having positions and the importance of members of a group. Do you think award shows are actually rigged like those K-pop survival shows? I mean, we will never know for sure, but it's something to think about with all the shady things some of these big broadcasting and music companies like to do behind the scenes. Which is sad, because it doesn't affect them as much as it can affect an artist's reputation, some of which wouldn't even need VOD awards. Who paved the way? K-pop was not created a couple of years ago. Idols have existed for quite a while now. I don't understand why people feel the need to put a name on it when the fairest thing would be to include several artists. Everyone paves their own way because everyone has had different struggles and obstacles in their career, either because they're Asian men that don't look like the stereotypical manly man, or because they're women in music and we all know how unfair and sexist the industry is, or because they went viral but people also made fun of them based on racism, or because people judge music without listening to it just because it's in another language, etc. You can say X, Y, Z paved the way, and they probably did contribute in their own way. But don't try to erase others' achievements from the past and present. Are BTS and Blackpink overrated? Calling popular groups overrated is overrated. These groups didn't just one day appear, released a song and immediately got all the fans, sales, streams, etc. they currently have. BTS has been grinding since 2013, coming from what used to be a smaller company, developing a very deep concept storyline, showing a huge diversity in their music style, giving 100% in their choreos and performances, having to deal with hate left and right, having thoughts about disbanding, presenting very deep topics in their MVs and lyrics, being Asian men that don't care if their image isn't as masculine as the rest of the world thinks a man should look like, and a lot of people being pressed about it. Blackpink are under YG, and even if that's a big company, it's a real struggle to be a female group under them. Don't get me started about being women in music and having to deal with sexism every single day. People have hated them since day one just for breathing. This doesn't include real concerns with both of these groups. They get slut-shamed, rumors are spread around them for the smallest things. People giving unsolicited opinions about their physical appearance, always being compared to other fellow female artists. I really think that people need to stop with this thing of calling everyone that gets to a higher level of success overrated. Alright, that was a ride. I obviously couldn't answer all the questions since they ended up being too many, plus I really wanted to dive deep in some answers, plus the video can't be 5 hours long. Still, I want to thank everyone who left a question in the post and helped me out with a video. Remember that you can share your own answers in a respectful way in the comments. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Bye. Adiosito.